AntMan is a much requested film for me to review, so I might as well start off the series with that. Now, in my last review, I made it very clear that I'm done talking about superhero movies because I'm just fucking sick of them. They all have the same formula. Marvel movies are bland and campy to a detriment, and DC movies are too dark and serious to be entertaining. So where does Ant-Man rank? Honestly, Ant-Man is hardly a superhero film, and that's one of the things I liked about it. It isn't a film that follows that predictable formula too much, and while it's reminiscent of films like that, it also pays homage to old heist films and science fiction B-movies. Ant-Man manages to be so over the top and silly that it keeps your interest, at least through most of it. How does a film like this hold up to the other great Marvel films? Not very well. It's not a film I would compare to like Iron Man or Captain America Winter Soldier. A more appropriate comparison would be to Guardians of the Galaxy, which is cheesy, dumb fun. However, Guardians of the Galaxy is much better than Ant-Man. Why? Execution. James Gunn did a very good job with the material he was given, and was able to flesh out those characters just enough to make them likable and somewhat sympathetic. Was the movie corny at times? Yeah, but overall it had an impact, if not on me, then the general audiences. This is where Ant-Man stumbles. Whenever Ant-Man isn't showcasing ridiculous special effects and action sequences, you feel more like you're watching a television show. Not even like a high-end one like Game of Thrones. It's like a show on the CW or something. Ant-Man looks flat and cheap whenever there isn't crazy shit going on. While the special effects for the most part are decent, it's not enough to make up for the practical action in the film. Fight scenes and just scenes of our hero breaking into the house are pretty boring because the scenes have no visual flair to them. If you know any of the behind-the-scenes troubles of this film, then you know Edgar Wright was supposed to direct this movie. Unfortunately, Marvel started taking creative control away from him, and Edgar Wright eventually left the project. It's odd that Marvel, a studio that earned its profit and had a significant impact on the film industry by taking risks and giving artists creative control, has now taken all control away from the creative people. If Edgar Wright had made this film, it would be one of the best films of the year. Maybe even the best Marvel movie ever made. No question. But because Marvel had to be a bunch of stubborn pricks, one of the greatest filmmakers alive today, and arguably of all time, has now been replaced by Peyton Reed, whose track record consists of bland comedies and mediocre television. So of course this movie's boring to look at. He's basically a yes man for the studio, which is funny because he directed a film called Yes Man. It's also worth mentioning that Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish wrote the film, and you can tell which parts are written by them, because those are the best parts of the movie. You can also tell which parts are written by insert screenwriter credit here, like the Baskin-Robbins joke that goes on way too long and is only there cause product placement.
Fucking Baskin-Robbins. Would you like to try our mango fruit flat?
What also took me out of this film is, well, how stupid it is. It's almost too stupid for its own good. So stupid that it lost me completely at times. If it bends, it's fine, but if it breaks, it's bad. And the movie breaks over and over and over and over. The dramatic elements of this film don't work either. Firstly, they're incredibly predictable. Secondly, they come out of nowhere. And thirdly, in a world where two Ant-Mans are fighting and make giant Thomas the Tank Engines, why am I supposed to care about this boring drama? I guess the characters need motivation. Maybe the movie should have done it quick, like in Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, Rocket Raccoon had one line of dialogue about his past. We didn't need to see it, but I guess it would be silly if Hank told his daughter, "Let me tell you how your mother died. Your mother and I were Ant-Man and Ant-Woman. And then one day, the Russians launched a giant nuclear bomb, so we hopped on the missile with our Ant-Man uniforms, and she decided to shrink down so small that she went subatomic and was lost forever. And that's how your mother died." I also want to mention how terrible the opening scene of this film is. It's just this boring scene in this boring conference room with a bunch of boring old white people. There's no excitement, no colors, no anything. You aren't even quite sure what's happening, because it moves way too fast. You think they'd start the movie with some exciting scene. It doesn't need to be an action scene, but like something to get us pumped. But no, boring flat scene with dull music that isn't even really necessary because they explain this later in the film. It's not a bad movie, and it's certainly a movie unlike Age of Ultron. And it's worth watching this one if you need something to watch. But I just can't help but think of how much greater this film could have been. all the potential they squandered. It's such a shame. I give this film a 65%. Now I'm done talking about superhero films. Stop requesting them.